What's up, guys? It's Lord Botha here with another video, and the first reviews for Fantastic Four are trickling in, and what does it all mean for Superman? Plus, I'm going to give you a little snap review of Superman. I did see it last week, I just haven't gotten around to having time to say anything about it. But first, the Rotten Tomatoes score for Fantastic Four First Steps is in. 86% fresh, 135 reviews, and they don't even give a top critic score yet. So this is just the first snap view of how critics feel about Fantastic Four, and some of the more personal critics that I trust have also came out and given their opinions about the movie. First, we have Nerdrotic, who saw Fantastic Four and states, Fantastic Four First Steps is the best Disney Marvel movie of the year. Which, of course, there's only been two other Marvel movies this year, Captain America Brave New World and Thunderbolts. And I do strongly disagree with Gary about Thunderbolts. I think Thunderbolts is actually a really good movie with some of the best actual story and messaging that I think most people can get behind in a Marvel movie in a very long time. Alan Ng of Film Threat saw the movie and just simply states 6.5. Chris Gore of Film Threat did a whole live stream about it for about a half hour on his thoughts for Fantastic Four First Steps, and generally his thoughts can be boiled down to he didn't hate it, liked it more than he thought he would, and it's better than he kind of thought it was going to be. Better than the clips showed that it was going to be. By the way, if you're wondering in the standings for Rotten Tomato ratings are, Thunderbolts still the highest Rotten Tomatoes ranking for a superhero movie this year. Fantastic Four in the second place there. Superman in third. And of course, everybody hated Captain America Brave New World, both critics and moviegoers alike. And again, as you can see here, Superman sitting at 83% fresh with 440 reviews, 92% from the audience. And I have to say, here's kind of the snap review of Superman from me. And I could boil my thoughts down to pretty much one sentiment that I felt the entire movie, which is that it would be a really, really good Superman 2 movie. The reason I say this is because at the beginning of the movie, you basically get dropped in the middle of the story. They give you a brief written exposition on the screen of the events that have taken place over the past 300 years to 3 minutes up till now. It will make more sense when you see that in the actual movie. But it feels like you start in the middle of the movie. It feels like there was a first movie, it ended on a cliffhanger, and this picks up right at the start of that cliffhanger. And listen, I'm all for not having a big lead in and kind of just drop you into the middle of a story and you gotta kind of learn everything as you go along. I think it works better in TV series or video games than it does movies, especially superhero or action movies. Or if that is a thing you do, you should, stop, go back, show some lead in, and then go back to where you were. That kind of thing, This movie doesn't do that. And everything for this movie does feel like it's for a TikTok generation. It's all quick cuts and snaps to here and there. Nothing has time or room to breathe, to settle down. And the very few times that there feels like there are those times, they're undercut by Gunn's impression of Whedon comedy that you've come to know very much so from him. Now, there is some good things about this movie. I think the action shots and the actual sort of majestic stills that you could get out of this movie look really good, despite a few technical errors here and there. But the cinematography for this movie was done by the same guy who did The Flash, which we all know to be a horrifically terrible movie, universally panned by everybody. It's not great in most places. When the lens flare from the suns that you have in the movie are so bad through the glass windows while Superman is moving back and forth or Lex Luthor is moving back and forth, that it's literally blinding me or causing the entire screen to go white. Yeah, that's not how your movie should look. Also, to address this and get it out of the way Krypto is in the movie way too much. I think the dog could have worked if you had him in a little bit at the beginning and a little to a decent amount at the end. But Krypto is throughout the film and is definitely a featured character in the movie. I will also say that having the Justice Gang in this movie was also a bad idea. For a large swath of the movie, they basically are pointless, and you wonder why we needed to include them. Because there could have been workarounds in the script and the writing where they were not needed. Even though I liked the character of Mr. Terrific, and at times thought he was way more heroic than Superman in terms of saving the day, I feel like they weren't necessary. And it detracted from the fact that this is a Superman movie, in which Superman does not a lot of Supermaning. Yes, he saves people. Yes, he shows off his powers, but there is no moment, no specific thing you can point to and go, wow, that's David Cornsweat's defining Superman moment. At no point does he seem incredibly in charge of any situation. At no point do you think, oh, well, Superman can single-handedly save the day in this situation. In fact, this whole movie, when I think about that, kind of reminds me of Critical Drinker's video, where he talks about why movies are so forgettable, why there's no iconic movies or phrases anymore. Everything seems to happen and then be forgotten in the next moment. And yes, they do play around with the lore of Superman and his parentage and why he was sent to Earth and all that, which yes, does annoy massive comic book fans. And they have every right to be outraged about that. However, I would say the more egregious thing in this movie is that they use it as a tool to sort of humble and wreck Superman emotionally and bend the nerve of the Man of Steel, which again is fine if you want to do that kind of plot in like a sequel movie. You know, humble the risen superhero to bring him back down to earth a little bit and challenge his perspectives he may have gained in the first movie, but as a plot for your first movie, it just doesn't feel right. It feels off. Also, all the characters in this movie, including David Cornsweat's Superman, feel more like sizzle reels of characters than they are actual flushed out characters. You get the sense and sort of the surface knowledge and idea of what they're supposed to be as characters or archetypes of characters, but you don't get any real massive development. Rachel Brosnahan's Lois Lane is probably the character that gets the most, and I don't think it's actually anything to do with what's put in the script for her. I think it's just because Rachel Brosnahan is a good actress, which, by the way, as for actually playing the character of Superman, looking like Superman, feeling like he can be Superman Clark Kent, David Cornsweat does a good job. He needed a better story, better script, and unfortunately it doesn't seem like he got that. Overall, and I'm probably missing a bunch of other things I want to talk about here, but this is more of a snap review that I've gone on way too long anyway. The one thing this movie proves is that James Gunn cannot do serious, single-focus character films. James Gunn is good at ensemble casts, witty and kind of outlandish ragtag team movies that are either comedic in nature or dramatic with some comedy, and he can do those really well. But he can't do the single-focus character movies, and probably would have been better off giving this movie to somebody else to write and direct. Unfortunately, it's such a big project in the universe that he's building that obviously you're not going to trust that to just anybody else. You want first-hand hands on that project. So it makes sense that he did it. I just don't think he was the best suited for the job. Now, with all that said, in terms of the money being made for this movie, it looks like we've gotten up to $243 million. That's domestic, and then $173 million international, for a total of $416 million worldwide. And again, to break even, this movie has to get up to about $700 million. And I know there are a lot of people out there coping saying, oh, it doesn't actually have to do that, yada, yada, yada. No, it does. Because the production budget, plus that over again for the marketing, or maybe even a little less. I think they said $125 million is what they spent on the marketing. But still, it's $350 million plus another probably $250 million because the theaters have to get their cut. Yeah, you're looking at somewhere between 600 and 700 million if the studio didn't lie about their production budget. And they always lie about their production budgets. It's always more than what they say. And while it is good that the majority of this money is actually coming from domestic theaters, I don't think that this was actually a movie that was built to be domestic focused. They definitely didn't lean into the truth, justice, and American way of the film, say like a Top Gun Maverick. That's despite the fact that they seemingly know that they should have done that because of things going on in the world. Because James Gunn, and this comes to us from IGN, states here in an article, James Gunn on why Superman is doing better domestically than internationally, quote, "We have a certain amount of anti-American sentiment around the world right now." And in the article, Gunn states, Superman is not a known commodity in some places. He is not a big known superhero in some places like Batman is. First off, that's an incredibly stupid statement. I looked up 5 lists of the top 100 or top 20, top 5, whatever superheroes in the world. Literally in like 5 minutes of Googling or less, Superman was in the top 3 superheroes, most popular superheroes in all of them. Yes, Batman and Spider-Man were sometimes first or second, but Superman was in the top 3 up there. So yeah, Superman's been around since 1938, okay? He's a well-known superhero. So I'm not going to accept this cope out there that, oh, Superman is doing bad internationally because people don't know about Superman. Do you stop and listen to how dumb that sounds? Anyway, he continues by saying that affects things, and it also affects things that we have a certain amount of anti-American sentiment around the world right now. It isn't helping us. Okay, fine. If you want to say that, and even if you want to go a step further and say, oh, our film isn't doing well around the world because Orange Man bad and the rest of the world hates the Orange Man. Okay, fine. But you know what? Top Gun Maverick, again, didn't have a huge international audience. They still did absolute gangbusters at the domestic box office. Mostly because they leaned in to the pro-American sentiment in their movie. Maybe if you had leaned into the pro-American, American exceptionalism sentiment in Superman, because Superman is an American icon. Yes, he is popular internationally, as I just stated, but of those 3 characters, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, that are the top 3 most popular in most lists, Superman is definitely the most Americana. And if you leaned into that, maybe, just maybe, you would have done even better at the domestic box office, and we wouldn't have to be worried whether or not your film was going to break even or not. Especially with the fact that Fantastic Four First Step reviews seem to be pretty good. Even the people that are its greatest detractors, like the guys on Film Threat who grew up Marvel fans and aren't very down with female Silver Surfer, and even people like Nerdrotic coming out and saying, hey, it's the best Marvel film of the year, which is, in terms of Gary and modern Marvel movies, a glowing review of the film. There are going to be people who were kind of discounting this movie that might actually go see it now. And from the shills, you're going to get massive support from. So, as much as Fantastic Four might have eaten Superman's lunch, it looks like it's going to get even worse if these reviews keep coming out the way they are. And I think they're going to. The problem is, with both of their budgets being as high as they are, I don't know if there's an audience there that can sustain both films. And these films might actually cannibalize each other's audiences to the point where neither of them reaches the break-even point. And that's going to say something very poignant about superhero movies. That 2 massive blockbuster superhero movies just probably a decade ago, if they were released then, that is, cannot both break even at the same time right now. That's going to put the entire industry on notice that superhero movies might be winding down in their popularity. But those are just my thoughts on all this. If you have your own thoughts, go and leave in the comments. If you liked this video, go and like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like this video, I appreciate you watching all of it. We'll talk to you again later.